All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Mindfulness Matters. We're going to take a look at mindfulness, resiliency, and stress management, and how mindfulness can help build our resiliency and help us manage some of the stress that we have in our lives. So, for those of you who are tuning in during Wellness TV, this is a four-part program that we offered the first class. We open it up to everyone. So, if you do like what you see today and you're interested in joining the program, you'll see the broad scope of it today, and you're interested, we will have a registration link at the end of this presentation. More than welcome to join. The more the merrier. I recognize a lot of names that have joined in our meditation session, so I'm happy to see those familiar faces. And for all those that do not know me, my name is Nick Tennant. I'm an on-site health educator in the Gator Care office in Jacksonville, so I work with the Employee Wellness Department there. And so when we talked about creating some new programs, something that really stuck out to me in my life is mindfulness. And it's something that is really, I've tried to incorporate into my life. And I've seen my stress and my anxiety and a lot of the symptoms that I dealt with those start to decrease over time. And yes, it does take practice and it does take some effort to put it into your life. But the best thing about mindfulness is that it can be done anywhere at any time. So I thought this was an important program to get out to everyone. So I hope that you enjoy and I hope you stick with it all the way to the end. Now, when we look at what we're going to be doing in the program today, it's important to look at the whole outline. So today we're going to go over the broad spectrum of what mindfulness and resiliency and stress management, what are those terms, what do they mean, and why should you care? Why are they important to you? That's really going to be the bulk of today, is really hammering home those terms, what they mean, because the other three classes, we're going to go to applying these methods and how we can incorporate this into our lives. But if you don't care about it, you probably don't care about incorporating it into your life. So this first class is trying to get you to have some interest in this. And I know you guys have probably joined this program because you do have interest, but why it matters so much. In the second class, we're going to be looking at gratitude. So we're going to discover the science behind gratitude. What does it mean to be grateful? What does the term gratitude really mean? And how can we incorporate it in our lives? And how does that help us when we are grateful? We're also going to learn some stress management techniques that can really build our resiliency. So you'll hear this term resilience or resiliency a lot come up. And we'll talk about that today, what that really means. We'll also be able to better understand mindful eating and how we can apply it to our dietary habits. So when we look at mindfulness, we're not looking at it just from a mental health perspective. Yes, that is a big component of it, but mindfulness really incorporates our whole well being. So that goes from eating and physical activity, as well as the mental health aspect as well. And lastly, we are going to develop SMART goals. So in the final class, we'll develop some SMART goals to apply these behavior changes we talk about through this course. So myself and the rest of the wellness department are always here for you. So you can reach out to us anytime if you need that support for those goals or need help creating them. We'll go over that in the last class. Now, what are the program requirements? So if you've already registered, you completed that pre-survey. So if you haven't registered and you're watching through Wellness TV, once you get out to that registration link, there will be a pre-survey. It's not long. It's your name and a few questions, just as baseline questions to answer about stress. So that is one of the requirements. And you'll also complete a post-survey after the class. So those are the two first components of what your requirements are. The second is you're going to complete a post-class assessment after each course. So this is not long. It's not time intensive or really that difficult, but it makes sure that you understand the bigger meaning. So there's only about 4 to 5 questions with each assessment that you're going to be required to answer. But I have to stress that you need to complete these post-class assessments because that is going to count as your attendance for each class. So if we do not have that response for each of the post-class assessments, we cannot ensure that you actually attended each class. As to that, if you can, please attend each class live. You'll get more out of it, I feel, if you're able to interact and get the 10 live. But if you are not, we know things come up. We know work schedules are crazy. We will be recording each class, so they will be available to view on demand. They are held every Tuesday at 12 p.m. So for the next 4 weeks, including today. So there'll be 4 classes total. we will be having these classes. Now, they will be recorded and available if you can't make it on demand or can't make it live. I also ask that you keep and update a daily gratitude journal. And you may be asking what that is or how to do it. You don't have to worry about that until after class 2. So after class 2, I will talk to you about what this daily gratitude journal is, what I expect of it. Now it's going to be personal. I'm not going to ask you to share it or turn it in. It's something for your own benefit, but I will ask that you keep up with it. And we also have for our program registrants, we do have some gratitude journals available for free in the wellness office. So if you're interested in that, you don't have to have that one. You can obviously keep one on your own. You can use your own materials, whatever you want to do. But we do have some free ones available in the wellness department at the wellness office in the Jacksonville. So if you do want to, you can swing by there and pick one up free of charge. So if you complete all those tasks that are listed above for my UFJPI and my UF Health Jacksonville members that are in Gator Care, that have Gator Care, you will receive 100 points towards your wellness credit upon those completion of the tasks that we just talked about. For our Proton members in Jacksonville, you still will get 100 points towards that wellness raffle entry that you have. And for my Gainesville folks, anyone from UFICO or UF Shands, you will, when your portal does open, you will be able to self-report this for 50 points as a Gator Care challenge. Okay, so these are the program requirements that I'm asking. Overall, it's pretty simple, but again, if you can't make it, there'll always be an opportunity to watch it on demand. So without further ado, let's get into the meat of today's topic, and that is, and really the whole program, and that is mindfulness. So you probably heard this topic or this word come up multiple times, and I'm going to ask you right now, just think on your own, what is mindfulness to you? When you think of mindfulness, what comes to mind? Right? A lot of people think, oh, mindfulness, that's meditation. Nick, I've heard you give meditations before. They're great. That's mindfulness. You would be correct that meditation is a form of mindfulness, but mindfulness is so much more than just meditation. A lot of the misconception and the misnomer about mindfulness is that it's just meditation and that's it. And if you're not a meditator, then you can't do mindfulness. That's not true. And there's a lot of definitions of mindfulness out there. But the one I thought that was the best was from mindful.org. And it says that mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we're doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. So, when you think about mindfulness, you probably understand that it means being fully aware in the present and being fully here in the present moment. But the best part about this definition, I really think, is not only being in the present moment, but really recognizing what's going on around you and not being overly reactive or overwhelmed when we think of things. And as I mentioned before, the best part about mindfulness is you can do it during any activity you're doing. Literally any activity. You could be sitting here watching this webinar right now and practicing mindfulness, typing an email. What are your fingers doing as they're typing? How do they feel? What do the keys feel underneath your fingers? Driving to work, eating meals, all these things you can do and practice mindfulness as you're doing it. And I think that's the most valuable asset of mindfulness. It's always being mindful. So, again, not being overly reactive and not getting too caught up in what's going on around us. So, what I want you to do right now is just go ahead and close your eyes for me. Okay. And I want you to think about this morning. Okay. Just this morning. Or if you're getting off night shift, you can think about this morning too. But for those folks that are just woke up this morning, what was the first thing you did when you woke up? What was the first thought that came to your mind? Was it, oh, I got to go to the restroom. I got to brush my teeth. Was it, I'm going to be late to work. I got to get out the door. I got to do this, that, and the other. Was your mind racing? Was it, oh, the alarm clock, it just went off again? Was it something like that? Was it, oh, no, not another day. It's not Friday yet. It's not Saturday. Was it anything like that? Now, what I want you to do is think about any conversations that you had this morning. Do you remember them? Can you recall any conversations that you had this morning? How about the facial expressions that the person, if you had it face to face, maybe with a loved one or your children, Do you remember any expressions they had on their face when you had this conversation? What about breakfast or coffee or tea or water, whatever you consumed in the morning? How did it taste? Can you recall, or is it so habitual that at this point, coffee's coffee and you need it first thing in the morning? How much cream or sugar did you put in your coffee? Were you mindful of that, or was it just, I'm gonna eyeball it? Okay. What sounds did you hear before you left for work? Did you hear any birds? If those of us traveling into work, what about car horns, construction, yard work? Was there any sounds that you were aware of when you got to work? Or here's a simple one. Did you put on your seatbelt when you drove to work today? Now you might be saying, yes, of course I did, but that could just be because it's habitual. It's just something out of habit. I'm guilty of, I've been taught as a kid, always put on your seatbelt. So it's just habitual at this point. But if you asked me the last time I drove, did I put on my seatbelt? My answer would be yes, but do I remember doing it? No, I don't. But I know I did it just because it's habitual. Now, on your drive to work, do you remember what you listened to on the radio? Or how about the other cars on the road? Or did you remember any stoplights that you hit? Do you remember any of these things? Could you recreate your drive to work right now if I asked you to? Now, you may know the route that you took and you may know all these things, but are you really savoring those moments? Are you mindful? I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of driving from point A to point B and thinking back, how did I just get here? You know, it's not being mindful in those moments because our mind tends to live in the past and the future a lot. When we drive to work, we are thinking about all the things that we have to do before the end of the day. So being mindful is really living in this present moment and not getting overwhelmed or anxious about the past and future. So what I want to do right now is show you this TED Talk. And this TED Talk was from a gentleman in Ireland that found the value of mindfulness in the face of tragedy. And what he says right here is really important because although he went through a tragic situation, what he is urging people to do is not wait for tragedy to be mindful in your life and to be present. So what I want you to do right now is just sit back and watch this video for me for a second. We'll continue right after that.
So I've been practicing mindfulness for about 6 years now. And I'm pretty sure that everybody here has probably heard of it at some stage. But do you really know what it is? A lot of people think that mindfulness is just meditation, but it's not. It's so much more. One definition of mindfulness is that it's taking conscious awareness of your present moment. It's valuing those little moments in life as they're happening. But why is that important? It's important to me because, sadly, I know the consequence of not valuing a moment as it happened. I'm going to share a few of my moments with you today, and some of them are big moments, but most of them are just simple, everyday moments that happened to change my life. And I'll start with that big one. Now, you might not remember where you were in May 2014, but I do. I was in the back garden of my brother's house, and the sun was shining. It was the day of my nephew Aaron's communion, and all of my family were there. Now, it mightn't sound like much to you, but it meant a lot to me. You see, there's 7 in our family. We're all grown up, and we didn't always get to see each other. But on that day, we were there. We actually joked that it was 10 years previous, at the same nephew's christening, that we last got a photo together. So that day, we decided to capture the moment. And I am so grateful that I can share it with you today. That's my sister Fiona in the top left, and then Peter, my brother Mark in the middle, and that's me, and then Melissa. And of course, that's my parents down the front. Now look closely, because we captured something magical in that photo. Just down in the bottom right corner, that's my little girl Kira in her first ever photobomb. Now you're probably looking at me and you're saying, Stephen, it's a beautiful photo, but it's just a family photo. And if I'm honest, I didn't realize how valuable that moment was until about 2 months later. I was sitting at home and with my two girls, Roisin and Ciara. My wife Amanda was upstairs when suddenly the phone rang. It was my dad. Now, there's nothing unusual about my dad ever ringing me, but it was the questions he asked me. That first question. Stephen, where are you? Well, it's not that unusual, but it's when he followed it up with the second one. Are you on your own? It was at that point that I was 5 seconds away from realising why my dad didn't want me on my own. I was 5 seconds away from realising my family's life would never be the same again. And I was 5 seconds away from realising that this was the phone call you never want to get. My dad went on to explain to me that at 1:30 that day there'd been an accident. My brother Mark had been driving his motorbike on a main road when somebody just came out, but he didn't stop. There was a collision, and Mark didn't survive. I didn't know what to do. I ran upstairs to Amanda to explain, but words just wouldn't come out of my mouth. But she knew how serious that phone call was. This was Mark, my older brother, someone I always looked up to. Mark was the most amazing dad in the world. He was the coach on his son's team. For years, Mark and my dad ran the local electrical business. Everyone in the community knew Mark. So much so that at Mark's funeral, Father John that said the Mass was a close friend of Mark's. I was realising in the aftermath of this just how important that moment was. I was becoming consciously aware, but it was too late. That moment was now just a memory. I share my story because what I did next might help you in your dark times. You see, I still had two little girls. Two little girls that want to know, why is Daddy crying all the time? For the first time in my life, my two girls were worried about me. So I had to do something. And that was when I remembered something a friend had been sharing. It was a thing called 100 Happy Days. Now, it might sound like an unusual thing to do a few weeks after your brother passed away, but I had to be positive even if I didn't know how. Now, anyone that's not familiar with the idea is that each day you take a picture, something that you're grateful for, and something to make you smile. The first day, I was a bit nervous, so I shared a quote. Being optimistic isn't always being happy. It's taking what the world throws at you and saying, I'm not going to let it get me down. The next day, I shared my first picture. I was training for a half marathon at the time, and it was just a day to pick up the number. The next day, I just had a bowl of soup with my girls, but we were happy. The following day, I ran that race, and I got a personal record that day. The next day, I met friends for lunch. I went away with my wife. We had fun with the girls again. Some days are a lot harder than others to share. If I was to share the next day with you, it would be a picture of the day we brought my brother's ashes home. But it was a day that we were still together, and I was grateful. But I was also grateful for those two little cheerleaders. Because the following day, they wanted to cheer me up. So they brought me surfing, Barbie style. And so the journey continued. And each day I would take a picture of something that I was grateful for. Now, don't get me wrong, these were very dark days, and in doing so, I wasn't hiding away from what was happening. I was opening my eyes and my heart to what I still had. As you can see, most of these moments are just simple, everyday moments with my family. But some of these moments were big. Like this day. This is the day my youngest daughter, Ciara, got to share the news with the world. That she was going to be a big sister. And it continued. And I was noticing more and more as I continued in this journey that it wasn't the big moments. It was those simple, everyday moments that just captured my heart. And then, on the last day, I shared this picture. It's a picture of myself and my brother Mark. And it's cropped from that family photo that I showed you earlier. A family photo that at the time was just an insignificant moment at a party. But it turned out to be a truly significant moment to me because the reason I value that moment so highly, and the reason I consider it priceless, is that this is our last ever family photo. It's something that can never be repeated, but something you can never put a price on. Did you notice something else? Something about all those other images that I showed you? Each one was just an everyday moment. Simple things that happened each day. When it mattered, when it truly mattered. I didn't have to win the lotto or go on a cruise around the world to find my happiness. Happiness. Happiness is just a positive perspective. I invite you to think about your moments. Could you find a happy, grateful moment in your day? Would any of your moments be priceless? If I'm honest, the value of the moment doesn't matter. But valuing those moments does. It's what brought me back to the person I truly am and gave my girls back their dad. I'm going to leave you with my idea worth sharing. And it's a simple one. Just don't wait. Don't wait until your moments become memories, until you realize just how valuable they are. And then maybe, just maybe, we might bring conscious awareness to our present moment. Thank you.
All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that and were able to hear it fine. I thought it was really powerful, and I know it was a tad bit longer than some of you may have liked, but the fact that it has such a powerful message and it shows you firsthand the effect that mindfulness can have. I mean, this guy turned a terrible tragedy into something positive in his life that not only affected him, but affected the people around him. And he said something very important here, and that really gets at the root of mindfulness. And it's saying that it doesn't matter the value of the moment, but it's valuing the moment. So even little things that we do, it's about valuing that. And it may not seem like a significant value at the time, but later as we work on incorporating mindfulness in our life, we can see that valuing, it's all about valuing the present moment. So what I want to do now is turn our attention to the research behind mindfulness. So in 2010, Hoffman et al. Conducted a meta-analysis of 39 studies that explored the use of mindfulness-based stress reduction and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. So what these findings found is that they're consistent with evidence that mindfulness increases positive effect and decreases anxiety and negative effect. So in one study, participants were randomly assigned to an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction group, and then they were compared with a control group. What they were self-reported measures of depression, anxiety, and psychopathology, and on neural reactivity after watching sad films. Now, this study was done by Farb et al. In 2010. And what the researchers found is that the participants who experienced that mindfulness-based stress reduction had significantly less anxiety, depression, and distress compared with that of the control group. Now, people also experience less rumination, and that is that stirring and thinking over the same thoughts over and over again. Now, it's usually negative. I mean, they just ruminate over these things. I mean, have you ever laid in bed and just thought of something embarrassing that you did 2 years ago, or this mistake that you made, or this negative experience that you had, and then you just sit and you want to go to sleep and your mind's just racing over and over again? So they found that people that practice mindfulness in their everyday lives actually reduce that rumination. So when you think about memory boosts, and we talked about this when I tried to have you recall your morning, but mindfulness and memory boosts are pretty much, I mean, you would expect that. So as we focus on our attention on the present moment, we're able to live our experiences and thoughts more deeply. So 2010 study by Jha et al. Documented these benefits of mindfulness meditation among a military group who participated in an 8-week mindfulness training. So they compared a military group that received mindfulness-based meditation training to a military group that didn't receive any of that training, and a non-military group, so just civilians that didn't receive that training. And this was during a very intense and stressful time in their life. So this was right before deployment. So what they found is that the non-meditating military group and the non-meditating civilians had decreased working memory capacity over time. Within that meditating military group, however, working memory capacity increased with meditation practice. Now, focus again is another benefit. It goes hand in hand with mindfulness. So, as you heard, it's about focusing our attention and being fully aware. So, those who practice mindfulness, they tend to have better focus, are more attentive in their work, and have stronger cognitive flexibility than before, than when they didn't have mindfulness as a core concept in their lives. And finally, another benefit of mindfulness is that it leads to less overreaction. You heard me share that at the beginning of this class that we tend to overreact or over emotional when we're stressed. So study shows that those who practice mindfulness can become less prone to overreact or immediately react in an over emotional way to conflict. So how many times have we reacted poorly or had a short fuse? I mean, you think about those times, and mindfulness practice can help us accept, understand, and process these emotional engagements in a very bigger productive manner. So let's look at this study here, mindfulness study with healthcare professionals. So in this study, it was a 2013 study by Fortney et al. They took 30 primary care clinicians and applied mindfulness techniques and training. So they had checkpoints at 1 day after the training, 8 weeks, and 9 months. So what they found is that even after 9 months, these clinicians showed decreased emotional exhaustion, decreased stress, anxiety, and depression, and decreased depersonalization, which is often neglected when we talk about stress and going through things and building resiliency. And this is that feeling of feeling alienated, feeling like you don't have the support system, or you don't feel that you feel like you're going through this alone. You don't have anyone to share it with, or you don't have any common experiences. And that's one thing that mindfulness can really help, and we'll incorporate a support system too as we go through this course. Now, you'll hear me talk a lot about how mindfulness can help with stress, but I want to make sure that we have a great understanding of what stress is. So when I want you to think about stress for a second in your personal life, and think about what really causes you the most stress, and so we can help you uh, challenge that stress in your life and really help reduce it. So I want you to think, does your stress really come from financial issues? Is it work related? Is it family, children, maybe personal relationships? Or is it more internal? Is it negative self-talk, thinking you're not good enough, or maybe setting too lofty of expectations for yourself? So just take a minute, think about that as I go through this next slide and we define what stress is. So stress is defined as this physical, mental, or emotional factor that causes us bodily or mental tension. And the important thing I want you to take away from stress is that it varies from person to person. I like to use this example of roller coasters. My friends, my family, everyone I know loves roller coasters. Me, my palms are sweating just talking about this. There is no redeeming quality for me in a roller coaster. I do not want to be strapped into this metal cart with one little bar going across my waist, flying down, doing loops, and my stomach going up in my throat. Not fun to me. It's just not. Other people find it exhilarating. So the important thing to remember is that what may be stressful to you may not be stressful to another person, and vice versa. So it's always be cognizant of those signs. And the other thing is stressors can be external or internal. So I ask you to think about what stresses are going on in your life. Are they internal, or are they external, or are they a combination of the two? So when we talk about internal stressors, that's that negative self-talk, maybe those unrealistic expectations that we may set for ourselves, that all or nothing attitude, my way or the highway, or these rigid thinking and lack of flexibility. Or this is another big one, the need to always to feel like you always need to be perfect. Like no one's perfect, but you've always set these lofty expectations. You feel like you have to do this, and if you don't do it, then you're let down, and that can cause a lot of stress in our lives. Fear of public speaking is another one that is internal. You have to give a big presentation in front of a group of people. That can cause us stress. Now, external stress are these factors that you can't really control as easily. So these would be your financial problems, your work problems, your family problems, being too busy, relationship difficulties, it could be your children. All of these things can be external stress factors. So I want you to, again, just try to find out where most of your stress comes from in your life. And lastly, we also, I see stress and anxiety used interchangeably a lot. And while anxiety shares a lot of the same symptoms as stress, so you'll get your rapid heartbeat, you'll get your muscle tension, you could even get your headaches and all that, but they don't mean the same thing. So while stress, you can find an internal, external stressor that's causing that stress. You can usually trace it back. Anxiety, on the other hand, it's that persistent feeling, even in the absence of a stressor. So you do not have to have a stressor present to feel that anxiety. Okay, so it's important to keep in mind that anxiety is this underlying, consistent, or persistent feeling that you may have. We look at the physical impact of stress and what it can do on our bodies. I mean, when you're stressed, your body produces a surge of hormones. And what these hormones do is they temporarily increase your blood pressure. So that causes your heart to beat faster and your blood vessels to narrow. And when we talk about acute stress, this is your response to a terrifying or traumatic event. So imagine a bear storming into where you are right now. Your body's going to tense up. You know, your heart muscle, you're going to start breathing quicker. Your heart beats faster. All those things happen. But when the event is over, your body is able to recover, right? So when the bear's gone and you make it through, your body is able to cover and basically go back to stasis. Now, when you are in that chronic stress, this is the circumstances that are ongoing and happen on a recurring basis. So your body never fully recovers. So what these stress hormones do is they just marinate in our body. So your heart can beat faster, you're you're breathing more rapidly, you're raising your blood pressure. All these things can affect our cholesterol levels, can affect our respiratory system. You also have an increased risk of stroke and heart disease because people that are usually stressed are less likely to get the adequate amount of exercise. When you're stressed, do you grab a bowl of fruit and vegetables, or do you go for the pizza, the cheeseburgers, the french fries, those comfort foods? So it also affects our dietary habits as well. And just within our own community, so these are some numbers from the last biometric screenings and personal health assessments we got from, I guess it would have been 2 years ago now, since we didn't have them last year in Jacksonville. But 54% of the people that screened had high blood pressure. Okay. 63% of the people screened did not eat the proper amount of fruits and vegetables. 54% did not get at least 150 minutes of physical activity per week. And finally, 74% of our population was considered what is obese. So you can see the impact of stress is not only important within our own community, but it's also a problem nationwide. So as we deal with stress and try to insert mindfulness into our lives, we're going to be doing what is called building resiliency. And so you're going to hear me use this term a lot. So I want to make sure you have a good understanding of what I mean when I say resiliency. So we all experience difficulties and stress in our lives, but how we deal with it may determine how resilient we are. So if we're able to overcome and learn from our tough and traumatic experiences, this helps us build resiliency. Now, I thought this definition was good. This is from the American Psychological Association, and they define resiliency as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as family and relationship problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stressors. Well, the important thing to keep in mind is that resilient people also face challenges, adversity, and stress in their lives. They're just able to adapt and overcome it in a more productive manner. So building that resiliency it makes it less likely that you're going to overreact, become overwhelmed, or become really stressed out when those adversities come up in your life. Now we'll learn a little bit more about resiliency when we build our SMART goals and the final course, but I wanted to talk about the 6 domains of resilience that Duke University puts out. So this is going to help us build our resiliency. So you want to think about these goals and keep these domains in your life. So vision, that first one in the green box there, this is reverse to our goals and purpose that we have in life. So it's about staying focused even when the times get tough and making sure that we don't get lost or distracted from what we're ultimately trying to achieve. So when we go over mindfulness in the third class and go into some of the other aspects and practices, this will help with this category of resiliency. Composure is exactly what it sounds like. So remember when we discussed that fight or flight response that stress activates in our body? Building that composure helps us reduce the effects of the fight or flight response. So instead of panicking and maybe having anxiety over things and having our emotions control us, we are able to better help regulate them and actually control our emotions better. Reasoning is our ability to problem solve, be resourceful, and plan ahead different roadblocks we may face in our goals, so we're not as shocked or overwhelmed when we face them. Now, health is one that is often overlooked, and I think it's very important. I mean, it is straightforward, but how can you be resilient? How can you be mindful? How can you build this resiliency if you don't take care of yourself? Right? So we need to get the proper nutrition. We need to get the proper exercise. We need to have proper sleep hygiene because how often or has it ever happened to you where you were stressed about work, you had to work late, you got home, maybe your family and kids were stressing, you didn't sleep well at night, you're tossing and turning and you rush back to work the next morning and before you can even sit down at your desk, your coworker asks you to do something or your boss asks you to do something like you probably have a shorter fuse, right? So you need to be able to take care of yourself, apply these mindfulness into your life so you can help your life and your daily goals as we continue forward. Now, tenacity is that bounce back quality. So it's about not giving up in the face of adversity and also setting attainable goals for ourselves. So we'll talk about those SMART goals in that last class, but it's not setting these lofty expectations that we could never fulfill, right? And then finally, collaboration is about finding that support system in our life. So it's about managing your social interactions and professional interactions in the proper manner. But most importantly, it's about accepting support and giving it to others as well. Okay, so it's allowing support to come into your life, but also sharing it with others. So why is resiliency important and mindfulness? I mean, we know the definition, but why is it really important and how can it help us? Well, resilience is what gives people that psychological strength to cope with stress. So resilient people are able to bounce back after adversity, like we talked with tenacity, and really use it as building blocks to positive changes. So when we listen to that TED talk, he lost his brother, and that was the last time he saw him. And then he looked at his little girls, and how could he continue? So it's using this as building blocks to build something more positive and make positive changes in your life. And we discussed the physical and emotional impact that stress can have on our bodies. So building resiliency can help with managing that stress. All right, so we went over a broad look at mindfulness, stress management, and resiliency, and I wanted you to get those definitions and those core concepts down. So in the next couple classes, we're going to be looking at how to apply this to our lives. What techniques can we use, and how can we use it to benefit our own lives? So next class will take place a week from today at 12 p.m. It's going to be the science behind gratitude. Okay, so you will need a gratitude journal. You do not have to buy anything if you do not want to. Even keeping an own journal at your house or at your workplace, whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be a specific kind, but we do have some available again for our program registrants. There will be a sign out sheet with gratitude journals located in the wellness office. So please make sure to pick that up. We will be starting this gratitude journal next week. So it's important to make sure to go ahead and plan ahead for that. You'll also have to complete this. Don't forget to complete this post-class assessment. So on the next screen, I will share a little QR code that you can scan and go ahead and complete it now if you'd like. You don't have to worry about doing that. We will send out a link with a copy of the presentation and a link to complete the post-class assessment as well. So you can complete it then if you'd like. So if you do want to go ahead and scan and complete that post-class assessment, you can use that QR code. Just open the camera app on your phone and hover it over that little QR code. Make sure it's in the screen. It should pop up a link that you can go answer this assessment out. Like I said, you don't have to do it right now. If you'd like to wait till we send it out, you're more than welcome to do that. And for those of us joining on Wellness TV, if you're interested in this course and continue this and learning how to apply mindfulness in your lives, on the next screen will be registration information. I'll just hang tight just for a second, give enough time for people to choose this QR code if they want to use it. But you are more than welcome to join. Like I said, it's over the next 4 weeks. Just make sure to register and complete the pre-class assessment, so to speak, and then you'll be on your way and you can complete this post-class assessment as well. So if you are interested in joining the program, that QR code's on the screen right there. Also, if you have access to the bridge, you can visit the wellness page. The link of the registration information is out there as well. I will hang around if there are any questions. But if not, I appreciate everyone joining, and I hope you will come back next week where we learn about gratitude and being grateful and how that can enrich our lives. Thank you.